Okay, just a reminder for everyone, please make sure you're on mute. We will be hearing a recording. I just heard somebody cough. They'll need to press the number 6 on your keypad to turn yourself onto mute. Okay, we're going to get started today. I want to explain that we use CorelDRAW version 11 during our training sessions. All versions of Corel, 9 through 13 at least, have the same tools, but they may be in different spots or look a little different. Please refer to your version of help in Corel to find the tools that we're using. If for any reason you can't find the tool that we're using, give us a call. I'll be glad to either help you with that or get you pointed in the right direction. So whenever there's a time I find that there is a difference between tools, I will point them out the best that I know them. And for Corel 13 users, we've done that in the past. Corel 9 users, we've covered some of that as well. So I do my best to go ahead and cover as many different tools as I can, letting you know the differences if there are any. Okay. Today's outline for the webinar, we're going to go about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We might even go over that 2-hour limit, but hang in there. We've got a lot to cover today. We're going to be going over the advanced tools in Corel. We're going to be reviewing some tools that we've already covered, but due to time limitations, some of the tools that we've covered before we're going to go ahead and skip. But I'll let you know where they are and where to find them on the previous sessions that we've been in. So I've also marked them on the pages for you to refer back to other CDs that we've done in the past. We're going to be covering tools today that we haven't touched on. There's only about, out of the 300 tools or more that are available in Corel, there's really about 12 or 15 basic tools, and we've up till now covered almost all of those. And then there's about, I'd say, another 12 or 15 what I would call advanced tools, tools you're going to use maybe once in a while. I'm going to take the time to try to show you today what they are and briefly how they work. Okay, let's start off with discussing the best way to learn Corel. Now, up till now, I've been doing a whole lot of projects which say to do this step, do that step, do this step, and you'll achieve these results. I'm hoping that everybody's at least setting aside 2 hours a week to work on learning. Pick one of the things at a time to work on and work it all the way through. If it's a tool or if it's a procedure, you want to make sure that you understand these things. Now, if you're just learning and you've just purchased CorelDRAW and you don't even know how to put a new page up on the screen yet, I would suggest at least an hour a day. And this is either before or at the end of your day, not in the middle of your day when you're trying to produce jobs and get clients sold and stuff like that. You want to be able to spend, if you're a beginner at Corel, try an hour a day, and you will find that you will, if you follow the CDs and the instructions, you will learn tools, and it doesn't hurt to review them on a regular basis. While you're doing your review, whether it's 2 hours a week or an hour a day, if you run into a question, write it down. And you're going to want to take the time to research your questions. You shouldn't take longer than about 15 minutes to try to research a question that you have. If you're taking longer than 15 to 20 minutes, instead of getting frustrated, take your time and then call here, and we'll try to point you in the right direction to either find more information or explain the tool or the procedure to you over the phone. We'll do our best to help. Now, the first place you're going to want to look for help, of course, is in Corel's help. Now, the best way to utilize this would be to find out, for example, what tool you want to learn about. In this case, we'll pick the smudge brush. Go under Help, go to Help Topics. when you go to Help Topics, there's 3 tabs here. You want to pick on the one that's called Search. It's the last tab. And you're just simply going to start typing in the name of the tool. It's going to give you some suggestions of what you're trying to cover, smudge, the smudge tool. Now, you can go ahead down here and take a look at different displays that you can look at. For example, if we click on Smudge Brush, it tells us what it is and what it does. It lets you apply smudging to an object. But if you want to learn more, you can click on the next topic, which discusses how to use it, or what it's for, and then there's the how to use it. Now, you'll see that there are highlighted areas which take you for further explanation. This is the best way that I've found to learn CorelDRAW. Since CorelDRAW 9, especially in Corel 11, 12, and 13, I have found that the Corel Corporation has taken great pains to describe its tools, describe how to use its tools, and document everything the best that they can. But there's no substitution for using the tool, finding out what it does, what all the little adjustments can be done with it so that you can learn the tool. So CorelDRAW Help is really the best way to go at this to get started. And as you can see in just a couple of minutes, I found all kinds of information on that tool. And that's why I say if it takes you more than 15 minutes, you're going to want to give me a call or us a call here, and we will do our best to get you to learn or understand where to go next to try to find information. So using the CorelDRAW Help is very beneficial. Take no more than 15 minutes and spend at least 2 hours a week working on learning Corel. The best way to learn it is to experience it, and if you don't have the work for it, you need to learn each of the tools before you start to use them. Okay, the next thing we're going to discuss is making CorelDRAW work better. There are some changes that I'd like to share with you which will allow CorelDRAW for your purposes to work better. Now, I've got them written out here, and these are for Corel 11, 12, and 13. Corel 9 and 10 users, you're going to have a few different steps. If you're a Corel 9 user or a Corel 10 user, give me a call. I'll give you the extra steps that are needed. However, today it's kind of the same, but you'll have a couple extra steps. So I'm going to go through what to make the changes to. And all these changes are going to be under the Options category under the Tools pull-down menu. When you go to Tools and you go to Options, you're going to get generally all kinds of changeable options that come with Corel. Now, I'm going to start with the very first one called Workspace. This isn't listed on here, but I want to explain it to you. There are a lot of people out there who are used to using Adobe Illustrator when it comes to creating these types of designs. Now, Illustrator is a good program. However, CorelDRAW has more functionality, more tools. It's also cheaper to own than Illustrator. So I'm finding a lot of people are converting from Illustrator to CorelDRAW. This means that you're familiar with the tools that are in Illustrator, and if you're familiar with the tools, you can default your workspace, which is what you see here for CorelDRAW, to Adobe Illustrator. It will show you the same tools you're used to using. It will even function some of the tools the same way. However, I advise you to only use that in a pinch when you're trying to get artwork done. For learning purposes, stay in default, which is the Corel's default workspace, and learn CorelDRAW. Okay? It's not that difficult, and it's not that much different from Illustrator, but it is more powerful than Illustrator is. CorelDRAW combines Illustrator, the paint program that comes with it, the tracing program, all the programs that you have to buy separately, a page layout program, when you buy the Adobe products, is all combined into one product with Corel. So stick with Corel. Just utilize this changing from one workspace to the other if you're an Illustrator user. Now let's start off with the changes that I'd like to see you make to help CorelDRAW run better on your system. The next one down is called General. And the areas that I want you to change here are the undo levels. CorelDRAW defaults their undo levels, regular, which is every undo that you do, to 99, and the bitmap effects to 2. Now, 99 undos means that CorelDRAW is going to save a version of 99 different things that you've done to your design, which means that if each of your designs is 1 megabyte big and you save 99 of them, that's 99 megs. And if you've only got, say, 100 megs on your computer, you're going to find that you're going to run out of space to save your designs and to work in. Now, I don't know about you, but for myself, I can barely remember what I've done the last 12 or 15 times, let alone 99 times. So I usually set mine somewhere between 20 and 35. I've got it set here for 35. But the least undo levels that you would do that I would recommend would be about 20. So set it somewhere between 20 and 35. The bitmap effects, you probably don't work with many bitmaps in Corel. It's not really a program that I would use for editing bitmaps, but there are a few steps you do with bitmaps. For those of you that went through our course number 2, we talked a bit in depth about bitmaps. Set it to 1. Normally, once you've applied a feature for a bitmap, if you don't like it, you're going to undo it right away. So there's no reason to set it for 2, because if you do, bitmaps are very large when it comes to memory size, and you want to make sure that you're keeping your size of your files down. So change that to 1. Under Display on the left-hand side, you're going to want to turn off Auto Panning. I don't know about anybody else, but I find it very annoying when I'm getting to the edge of my page with my cursor and the page kind of takes off on me to the left, right, up, down. That's called auto panning. It thinks that you're trying to get further past your page. I turn it off because I find it annoying. If you don't like it, you can turn it off as well. Okay, the next tool we're going to talk about is under Save. And there's a couple of settings in here that I want you to be familiar with. Number 1, there's an auto backup, which means that the computer or the program automatically, in a certain amount of time, will automatically back up your program in case you have forgotten to save it. Now, for all the different things that you're doing, I have found that 30 minutes is the best auto backup. Sometimes auto backup is set for maybe 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And I don't find it to be enough time for me to get done what I'm trying to do. And it's nothing more annoying than when I'm working on a big file and the computer decides, okay, it's time to back up, so you can just wait a minute. I find 30 minutes is a very good time. Now, down here where it says Make Backup on Save, I normally turn this off, but I only turn it off because on a regular basis, I'm backing up my system. I back up my system every night to another hard drive and then to a CD once a week and take it off site so that in case there's a fire or something, I've got a backup. What this does is, and some of you may be familiar with that, wherever your file is, when you first save it, it automatically makes a backup. It's called backup of whatever the name of your file is. And that's kind of another way for CorelDRAW to help you save your files just in case the file you're working on becomes corrupted. It gives you a backup file. Now, if you feel comfortable with the way you're backing up your system and you feel comfortable with the fact that you can get your old files anytime you need to, you can turn this off. Nowadays, it's not as important as it was in the past because hard drives are so large. So you could actually leave that on if you want in case your file becomes corrupted while you're working on it. I have had that happen a lot in Corel 11. There's a little thing that comes up. It says, hey, there's a problem with 11, and it tries to shut down. I think that, as far as I can tell, they've solved that problem with Corel 13. So again, you could probably leave this on if you want. I usually opt to turn it off. But please make sure if you turn it off that you're saving files. As a matter of fact, you should be backing up your files regardless. We really have talked about that very little. But you should be backing up your files on your system either nightly or weekly and getting them off of the system and onto a CD or a thumb drive or a portable hard drive and taking them off premises once a week in case there is a fire, a flood, or some other damaging thing that happens to your store or your computer. I've lost a lot of stuff that way when computers have died, and it's not fun. If you want to know more about that, please give me a call. I'll try to explain it to you further. The next area we want to adjust is called text. Now, under text, normally down here where it says default text units, it's usually set to points. And unless you've been in the printing industry and learned the printing industry, you're not sure what a point is. All you really know is that all your fonts are labeled as 16 point, 12 point, 10 point. For some of the areas in Corel, you can actually set this to read inches, and I would suggest setting it to read inches. It'll just make your life easier. For those of you who don't know what points are, equivocally, 72 points equals 1 inch. So if you want something that's about a ½ inch, you would go half of 72. Or if you want it 2 inches, you would double 72. Also on text, you've got a little plus sign next to it. You want to click on that plus sign, and you want to click on Quick Correct. Now, when Corel is installed and the default settings are on, all of these are going to be checked on. You want to turn off capitalized first letter of the sentence. I can't tell you how many phone calls that I've gotten from people who are typing in www.something.com.org, and they call me because that first W always capitalizes and they can't get it to be a lowercase w. Turn this setting off, and from then on, anytime you type in, it will not capitalize the first letter of the sentence. Consequently, while you're in there, a couple of other things that have caused problems with people in the past, connected to initial and consecutive caps, turn that off, and replace text while typing, turn that off. Sometimes when people are typing, they want to use an abbreviation, and sometimes the abbreviation equals something in the replace text area, and they've had some problems with that. So turn these three things off, and you should really be set for what you need to do whenever you're typing something in or you're trying to type or work with fonts. Okay, the next thing we're going to go over is where it says document. Once you have set all these settings that we've just gone through, you need to click on the word document. You need to put a check mark on Save Options as Default for new documents, and make sure that all these are checked on. After you've done that, click on OK, and all the defaults that you've just changed will now be permanent. So the next time you open up a CorelDRAW file or tell it you want a new file, it will remember all these settings so you don't have to go back in and do them again. It's very important that anytime you save or make a change to the settings inside of options, that you save them as defaults for the new documents. Otherwise, you'll expect it to be turned on or something to be changed, and when you come in to a new page and start a new job, you run into problems. So make sure that that's turned on. Then click on OK, and it will then save all the different settings that you've changed. So that covers how to make CorelDRAW work better. There's one more area, step number 7 here. We've covered this under another CD. However, it has to do with color management. And if you go under Tools, there's an area called Color Management. When you click on it, it's going to be set to on. It'll be like, I believe it's default settings that are on. And what happens here is when you're trying to print to a printer or a color printer or an output device that uses color, CorelDRAW tries to do a color correction based on making it look the same on your monitor that you've scanned in, that you're sending out to your printer. Now, I've found that CorelDRAW doesn't really know your printer, your scanner, or your monitor. These settings are normally set up for very, very expensive pieces of equipment. And because the color correction really doesn't work, I actually tell people, go into this setting, click on Color Management Off, click on OK, and now what happens is when you're sending jobs out, you're sending out raw data. There's no color correction going on, so it's not trying to fix colors to match certain things. All it's doing is sending out the data raw. So what you see is in the end product may not match what you see on your monitor, and that's where color correction comes in, and we covered that in CD number 3. And if you want to know more about color correction, get CD number 3 and review it. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is setting defaults in Corel. I get a lot of calls from people who ask me, I don't like the default font or the size of the font that CorelDRAW has set. How do I change that? Consequently, I get the same calls about the fill color, the text color, and a few other items. So I'm going to take the time now to go through how to set up defaults in Corel. And setting defaults in Corel is basically the same each time. You just need to know where to go to change the setting. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with text. To change the size and the font on text, what you want to do is click off the page so nothing is selected. So simply just click left mouse button on anywhere there's nothing on the page. Then go to text and format text. And this will bring up the format text box. You can choose whatever font you want and whatever size you want. You notice the setting here is set to inches. Some of you may see that it's set to points. That's because you haven't changed the options like we just showed you how to do. In this case, it's set to 1 inch black, or 1 inch Arial black. Now, you can choose whatever font you want and whatever size you want. In this case, I'll change the size to say a half an inch, 0.5. Okay. When I click on OK, it's going to ask me, okay, you want to make a change. What do you want to make the change to? Which attributes? In this case, you get a choice between artistic text and paragraph text. Now, from back in our other discussions, I had told you to please stay away from paragraph text unless you're using it as a word processor and you're typing in letters and things like that. So you shouldn't have to apply any of these changes to paragraph text. In this case, we're going to use artistic text, which is already selected for us. I click on OK, and then OK again. And now all the settings, when you choose text and you type in, will take effect. In this case, Arial black is the default. It's 36 points, which is roughly half of 72. Remember I said 72 points equals 1 inch? This area right here, when it comes to text, cannot be changed to inches, so you're still going to have to kind of understand that conversion. But 36 points is about a half inch. So now everything I type in is set up for Arial black 36 point. In this case also it looks like I've got a default for italic turned on too. And you can make those defaults in that area as well. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is talk about the fill color. Now, some people have their own particulars, and what happens is the reason I find people want to change a fill color, a lot of people who are screen printers want to use Pantone colors, as their default colors. And it's okay to get a palette with the default colors on it. It's another thing to be able to set your text without having to go back and change the color. So, to change the fill color, again, you want to click off so nothing is selected. You want to left mouse click on the color you want to use. In this case, let's change it to a Pantone black. So I need to open up my Pantone palette. I'm going to go to Color Palettes, choose the Pantone Solid Color. You'll see then on the right that I've got my Pantone color charts. This one is Pantone Black. So if I left mouse click on the color, I get that panel again asking me, what do you want to change? Do you want to change the graphic? Do you want to change the artistic text? Do you want to change the paragraph text? What would you like to change? And the graphic is basically any of the objects you do, like circles, squares, polygons. Okay, it's going to use that as the default. In this case, what we're going to do is we're just going to set it up for artistic text. So I turned graphic off and I chose artistic text. Click on OK. And now when I type in text, what you'll see is they both look black, but this one, as you can see down here, says that it's Pantone Black. So it now defaulted everything to the Pantone Black for me. The original one says that it's just plain black. So for those of you who are screen printers and want to set up your graphics, your artistic text to come in as Pantone colors originally, because you're using Pantone colors to print out your separations, this is how you can set up fill colors for those colors. And then it's the same way as the text color. When you right mouse click on, click off so nothing is selected, when you right mouse click on a color, left mouse click on a color, you change what you want to change. For text color like we just did, or for graphics, I'm going to change it back now. And that's the way you do that. Now, two other areas that people ask me about setting defaults are page size. They want the same page size to come in each time when they start a new page. We've actually covered that on CDs 1 and CD 5. And they want the default palette to come up on a normal basis, or they want this to become their default palette. Again, we've actually covered palettes and default palettes on CD number 3. But here's some quick ways to make some of those changes if you want to do it here using this CD. So that covers setting of defaults in CorelDRAW. And again, I'm going to take a second, see if there's any questions. And I don't have any questions. Great. That means everybody's understanding what I'm discussing here, and or you're going to work on it later at a different time. So that's good. Reminder, if you have questions, please type the questions in on the right-hand side and send them to me so that I can answer them if it's pertinent to this conversation or at the end. So let's move on. We're going to talk about some advanced tools now when it deals with fonts. Now, on CD number 1, we discussed fonts a lot in depth. We went through the basics of what Font Navigator is and how to use it, of how to find a font, deal with a font, all those kind of things. However, there's some advanced stuff that I'd like you to know about as well. And this doesn't really have to do with Corel. This has to do with some programs that are available on the web. There is a program called Identifont, which, if you have a sample of your text, will allow you to put the text in and then answer questions based on the text, how you see it, so that it can find what the text is for you. And then there's a program called What the Font. And this requires that you take the image that you have, scan it into your system, upload it to the website, and it will then ask you how to do or what these letters are, and it will find a font match for you. Let me take the time to show you a couple of these screens. Okay, the first one you're going to see here is called Identifont. And the way this works is bear with me for 1 second. Okay, let me close some tabs here. This is a new web browser from Yahoo, and I don't think that the display likes it. Okay, it's called Identifont, and the way this works is when you come to the website, click on Identify a Font. You want to type in the letters that you're looking for. Click on Identify, and it's going to start asking you a series of questions. Do the characters have serifs? And they kind of show you little previews of what it looks like. In this case, nope, it doesn't have serifs. What do the characters look handwritten? And it gives you 2 examples, and in a description here, the character outlines are drawn with geometric precision. The characters look handwritten with a pen or a brush, neatly or otherwise. In this case, this is the answer. And then it'll continue to ask questions till it gets to the end, and it'll give you a list of fonts that it thinks it is. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go through here and just kind of click on things until it gives me what I'm looking for, which is what it thinks the fonts are. And as you can see, it gets very descriptive of what these letters are. And then it gives you a list that you can compare. So the R, was this, if I'm looking at it, is this the way the capital R looked that I have for an example? If not, go to the next font. Is this the way the R looked? Is this the way the R looked? If this is, then okay, does the O look like this? Does the N? Once you find out what it's matching, then you can look up the name of the font. So, as you've seen, this is kind of a neat and quick way to find a font, but it's one of those advanced tools that you need to know about. The other fonts sites that are available is What the Font, and again, this deals with downloading a scanned-in image of the font. I really suggest reading through here to understand how it works before you use it. Now, once you've identified what the font is, you need to move on to get the font. Now, if it's not available from your CorelDRAW CD, there's another place that I'm going to send you to. It's actually called Free Fonts. It's a website that has over 6,500 fonts that are free. And what you want to do is, you'll see previews of the fonts, and you'll see a bunch of writing underneath. This is the link to download the font. The last set of words before TTF is the name of the font. So if you're looking for a specific font, one doesn't come to mind, but let's say Arial, okay, you would look at the end down here for the name Arial. When you find it, click on it, download the font, and install it into your system. Another one where you can get some free fonts from is a company called Fontica. Let's let it come up. Okay, now with Fontica, it's a nice place to look for different files and fonts, but they only allow you like 3 or 4 free downloads. You have to register, doesn't cost anything, but they only let you download so many free ones. So use this only if you can't find it on the other page. Sometimes that does happen. Okay. So let me move back then. Let's get back into Corel. So identifying a font, I've showed you some advanced tools. I've showed you where you can find some free fonts. And you might have other fonts somewhere on your system. The key is you need to know what the font is before you can find it and load it onto your system. And those are the main things you want to know about fonts. Another type of thing I want to talk about with fonts are the extended characters. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but all fonts have more characters than what are on your keyboards, like A, B, C, 0, 1, punctuations. They have more characters that are in the fonts, and to see those extra characters, you want to go to Start, All Programs, Accessories, System Tools, and then go to a program called Character Map. Let me bring that up for you so we can take a look at it. Now, Character Map, when you pick the font that you want to use, in this case we're looking at Arial Black, you can see all the different characters that are available. Normally the beginning characters are the ones that are on your keyboard. However, there are extended characters. In this case, there's a register mark in here. So instead of creating a register mark with an O and a circle on it and all that kind of stuff, you can simply select the letter, click on Select, then copy it. Let's go back to Corel for a second. I can then choose my artistic text tool, click on the area where I want the text to go to Edit, go to Paste. CorelDRAW is going to ask me a question. Do you want to discard the font? Do you want to maintain the font? In this case, when you're doing this procedure, you want to maintain the font and the formatting because you copied it from Arial Black. Click on OK, and now it'll leave you the register mark. Let's go back into Character Map again. And if we look down here in the font area, there's a number symbol if you wanted that. There's also, if you go all the way to the bottom, there's some other characters. There's a sun shape, spade, club, heart, diamond, musical notes. So if you wanted one of these, you would do the same thing. You would select the one you want, click on the select button. In this case, we just want the note symbol. Highlight through it. We're leaving that, not highlighting through the register mark. Click on Copy. Then go back into Corel. Again, select the artistic text tool. Click on the page. Paste. I'm going to use Control V on my keyboard this time. Make sure Maintain Fonts and Formatting are turned on. Click on OK. Whoops, I must have copied the wrong one. Hang on for 1 second. Well, for some reason CorelDRAW doesn't want to, CorelDRAW doesn't want to give me that symbol. So it might be a symbol that's mixed up. It's got a preview that's one way and something the other. Let's go back. We'll look at a different font that I want to show you. A lot of computers have this. It's like a character font, and it's called Wingdings. Let's take a look at that. Okay, and in here you'll find even more symbols. These are the symbols that I use to kind of do our little presentation today. But again, when you find one, let's select it, copy it, go back to Corel. I'm going to find out here if it's the font or not. Paste, edit, paste. I want to maintain the font and the formatting. It must have been that font that was giving me some problems. Okay, but now we've got a floppy disk for whatever we want it for. Now another point here is once you have that brought in, it's a font. So you want to convert this font to curves. You want to make it a graphic. So go to Arrange, Convert to Curves, and now whenever you save it or use it someplace, it doesn't look for the font anymore. It just keeps it as a graphic. So hopefully these advanced tools will help you work more with your artwork, with your fonts, and help you out in your designing. Okay, let's move on to the next point, which is we want to cover again. Now we've covered this under CD1, but it's very important. It's more of an advanced tool, and I need to make sure that you understand how to do it. We're going to go through creating our own toolbars. And why is this important? Because when you've typed text in and you're using your toolbar and you're not sure what the size is, you need to have another toolbar made to show you exactly what the size is. In this case, the width is 2.323 and the height is 0.37. Okay, so we need to know exactly what the height is. So in order to get this toolbar added to our CorelDRAW, some of you don't have this here, I'm going to walk through the steps and how to do it. Once I have this one created, you should be able to go and create this toolbar, which switches between wireframe and standard view. And I create this toolbar also, which helps with my zoom tools. It's a quick zoom tool area instead of waiting for the flyouts to come out in my zoom tools. So if you'd like to create those three toolbars, I really strongly suggest you create the one toolbar, but creating all three will help you in your design process. Okay? So what we want to do first is we want to have some kind of an object on the screen. The reason for that is the tools I'm looking for when I have an object selected are right here. The object size, the scale factor, the non-proportional scaling, the rotation, and the mirror. Okay? I want to be able to utilize those when I'm creating the toolbar. So what you want to do is go to the edge of the toolbar where you see a double line. Right mouse click on that double line, go to Customize, Property Toolbar, and Add New Command. Now, when I'm in Add New Command, I can click on one of these tools. In this case, this one's the object size. It will automatically go to where the tool is for me, so I can left mouse click, drag it out to the screen, and start a new toolbar. So now I want all these tools right here, which will help me with all my sizing later on when I'm working with text. So we click on the scale and we drag it out to the toolbar. When we get into the toolbar, you'll see like an I-beam appear. When you see that, let go and it adds the tool to it. Continue doing this for all the other tools that I recommend you add, which is really this entire row. Once you have all the tools added to your toolbar, click on OK. It's very important that you click on OK and don't just close this window. If you close the window, your toolbar is going to go away. So click on OK. Now you have the new toolbar created and you can actually place it anywhere you want on your screen for future use. I usually tuck mine up right next to this toolbar so that it's always in visible sight. Now, again, it was kind of quick, but you should also create it for your wireframe mode and your zoom tools. The zoom tools that I like are just the plain zoom tool, zoom in, zoom out, zoom levels, zoom to selected, and zoom to page. And these toolbars should help you with quick clicks instead of going through several tools to get to these tools. So that goes over how to create your own toolbar. We covered it here extensively, but it's also on CD number 1. We're also going to take the time now to discuss what I would call also another advanced feature, which is how to save your files properly. I want you to start saving your files wherever you save them, but I want you to start using keywords and keynotes. Okay? In the keywords and keynotes, I want you to put things like the client's name, what department they work for, brief description of the job, and any other words or word that the client would typically use to describe a particular job. Okay, so when you first start your page, I want you to start off by going to File and Save As. Put it wherever you save your files. Give it a name, and I would suggest being as descriptive as you can with the name. In this case, as you can see, I've got this labeled Homework Course Number 6, Advanced Drawing Tools. Okay. Normally your Save As type is always set to CDR. But down here in the keywords, you're going to want to start adding those little things. One would be the name of the job or the name of the customer or the customer's company name. One of those things. A description of what the job is. You know, for example, if I do a magnetic sign for somebody, I put in the word magnetic sign. If I do a banner for somebody, I type in banner. I get descriptive with it. In this case, like we pulled up that little CD, and I want to know that piece of clip art's in there. Or it wasn't a CD, it was a floppy disk. Sorry. I'll type in floppy disk. And you have two areas. You've got keywords and you've got notes. These do have limitations. You can only put in up to 255 characters, but you can put 255 characters in keywords and 255 characters in notes. The reason for this is, next time we get together, I'm going to show you a program that allows you to search all of your clip art for using keywords and showing you previews of what they look like. So if you start putting in keywords and notes when you save the drawing first off, later on when a customer calls you and says, remember that job we did about 9 years ago? And you can go, no. However, let me look it up. And you can go into this program and type in the customer's name or the name of the company, and it will pull up all the designs you've ever done for that customer, providing you put in keywords and notes. So you don't have to go back and say, okay, what year was it? And where did I save those files? And how are they done? Okay, so it's very important that you start saving your designs using keywords and notes. And as descriptive as you can be is the best you can do. You might want to put a job number in here so you can refer back to the job number. Describing what the product is so you can use that description later. Okay? Colors. If you only use blue, red, and black, put in blue, red, and black. That way later on, at least if only the customer remembers, well, it was a blue on yellow banner. Well, now at least I've got some kind of search criteria that I can use. So as many descriptive things as you could put in when you first start the design process. You won't have to put it in again, or you can add to it later if you want, but those will be there so that you can search through this using this program that I'm going to cover the next time we get together. So it's very important that you start saving your files properly. Hopefully I didn't confuse anybody. Let's move on to some of the different drop-down menus, fly-out menus, tools that are actually in Corel that we're going to talk about. Now, some of these tools we've covered on other pages. Whenever you see like a red line here that says what the CD is, like the shape tool for example, we've actually covered that on CD too. In some cases I might cover it very briefly. In some cases I just might refer you back to where it is so that you can cover it. However, some of the stuff that you see highlighted in blue are things that we're going to cover on this CD. For example, the knife tool and the eraser tool. We're going to cover those and how to use them. These tools I'm talking about can be found under the first flyout menu here. You notice here's the shape tool, here's the knife tool, and the eraser tool. But there's three other tools that are involved here. There's a smudge tool, a roughen brush, and a free transform tool. Now, the reason that I'm not covering these is because never in my 20 some odd years of using Corel and doing the type of work we're doing for our industry, if you're an embroiderer, a screen printer, a sign maker, I have not found a use for these yet. So there's no reason to cover them. There's no reason to go over them because you probably will never use them either. However, later on, if you want to know what the smudge brush does and you want to learn about it, because like I said, you're going to want to set aside time for learning Corel on a regular basis, and this might be a tool that you want to find out about, please research it and use it, and then that way you'll be at least familiar with it in case you want to use it later. So let's start out here. We're going to just briefly go over the shape tool again. I'm not going to go as in depth as I did in CD number 2, but I'm going to go over it briefly. And what the shape tool does is it allows you to work on an object with nodes. And I'm going to zoom in here, and we're going to discuss nodes just a little bit. When you have the shape tool selected and you select your object, you get these small little dots which are called nodes. Now, in between the nodes are lines, and you need to know how each one is made up. For example, if I click on this line right here, and I look up at my tools, whatever is not highlighted or not a choosable object is what it is. In this case, converting this to a curve is impossible. Why? Because it's already a curve. If I want to make it a straight line, I can click on the straight line and it'll change it to a straight line. So whatever it is, if I want to know what this node is, it's whatever is not usable or that I can change to. It's a curve, and it's using a cusp node. On that CD, I talk about what a cusp node is, I talk about a smooth node, and I talk about a symmetrical node. Now, each of these has its place. However, for the most control, you always want things set to a cusp and to a curve. Okay, that gives you as much control over that node as you can get when you're using it. Okay, and again, to delete a node, you simply select it. You can press the minus key or the delete key on your keyboard. A lot to learn with this tool, but it's a tool that you need to use in order to learn. When you get your CD, this design of this horse will be on there. I suggest getting in there, trying to straighten out this curve here, trying to make these two connect. Okay, so if you'd like practice on this design, it's a good design for practicing. Okay, the next tool we're going to go over is the knife and the eraser tool. And I'm going to start with the eraser tool first, because I talked about bringing this connection together. And kind of a good tool to do that, if you don't want to go through the point of connecting nodes and disconnecting them, you can use the eraser tool to erase that space that's in between. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in so I can see this area. I'm going to go to my eraser tool, which is the third one in. Now, when you have the tool selected, you'll notice you've got some choices here. And really the only choice that I go through is how thick this eraser is. In this case, it's 0.01. Maybe I want a 0.1. I just highlight through it, type 0.1, and realizing it's too big, as you can see, I will go back and put it to 0.01 and press the enter key. Now my tool is a shape that kind of fits in between both. So now what I want to do is I want to swim through here with the tool. So I'll click and hold and just drag through and let go. Now what's happened is I've actually joined those two pieces together, and now I can go back to my shape tool and start to even out the roundness. Now, a lot of these tools work together. So you'll always find that there's a quicker way to do something. In this case, we connected those two by simply using a tool called the eraser tool. And now I'm going through and I'm making my adjustments to smooth it out using the shape tool. So the eraser tool is a nice tool to use, again, when you're editing your designs. let's also take the time to talk about the knife tool. Now, I've shown everyone a few ways of how to split something in half utilizing the cookie cutter method that we talked about, either using trim or intersect. Another way to do that, or what might be a faster way to do that, would be to use the knife tool. So let's say we want to cut this letter M in half. Right now, if we look at it in our normal view, you'll see it's one piece. But what we can do is use the knife tool to cut it in half. Now, when the knife tool straightens out, that is a point where you can start your cut. Once you click with the left mouse button and come down, you'll notice that it goes to a 45-degree angle till I get to the next point where it straightens out. And I can click again. Now, this thing is now in two pieces. So the knife tool allows you, again, just to simply cut something in half. But let's take a look at what we can do with the eraser tool. This object, if we use the eraser tool, we can also split the design in half or create a different type of design. If I click and hold with my left mouse button and drag through and create a shape, that's the way the design gets cut in half. Now, with that tool, I have to go to arrange and break apart to get my two pieces separate. But now I've got a quick design in the middle of what I've cut apart. Also, you'll notice the difference is this leaves a space between the two, whereas when I cut with the knife, let's do that again in wireframe, there is no gap now. And it's right next to itself. It doesn't overlap, but it's right butt up against itself. Okay? So those tools are two tools that you can use in your design elements whenever you're, well, three tools if you include the shape tool, whenever you're trying to adjust your artwork or make different types of artwork that you want to use. Okay? Some other tools for creation. We're going to go through the freehand tool, the Bezier tool. We've covered the Bezier tool on CD number 2, the artistic media, and the dimension tool. Those can all be found under this flyout right here, about the 4th tool down. And again, you'll see there's some other tools in here that I'm not going to cover, like the pen tool, the polyline tool, the 3-point curve, the interactive connector tool. Again, the reason being is I haven't really found a use for them. So I only want you to be aware of the tools that you're going to need to learn and will be useful for you. If you want to learn more about these tools, spend the time to research them and learn them. But let's start with the first tool, which is the freehand tool. Now, the freehand tool, let me zoom in here. What the freehand tool does is it basically allows you, like a pencil or pen, to simply draw a design, and you've got the design finished. Now, a couple drawbacks to this tool. If you're using a mouse, it's very hard to control. If you have like a tablet which uses a pen, you can be more precise because it works a lot like the pen, so you can use that tool. But a mouse is very difficult to use that tool for. If I try, for example, to copy this letter M, and I grab my freehand tool and I start to draw, the mouse kind of gets away from me. Oops, I just lifted the mouse to move it. Okay. Now, can I get that exact same look? Probably not. I can rough it in when I'm finished and go back and edit nodes to make it better. However, the better tool that I like to use for copying things is the Bezier tool. This is more of a connect the dots type tool. As you draw, a line is produced in between the two dots to finish your object. Now again, on CD number 2, we've gone through this tool in depth, so let's just quickly take a look at the tool. When I click on my spots now, I'm going to get straight lines. Okay? Even with my curves, I'm going to get straight lines. And I'm going to do this quickly, but we'll come back and fix it. Now that I have these straight lines in, like I showed you in CD number 2, I use my shape tool, I select all the nodes, I convert the nodes to cusp, and I make everything a curve. What that allows me to do is now adjust the nodes individually, and I have all the adjustments I need to start creating curves. Now, this point right here, I now have a straight line. Click on the line itself, change it to a straight line. And now I can make adjustments to my curve. Okay, we've covered this in depth already. I'm not going to take a lot of time on it now, but if you want to learn more about that, please use CD number 2 to learn how to do it. Now, the reason why we did that is because I wanted to show you the Bezier tool versus the freehand tool. Okay, there's another tool in your arsenal called the Artistic Media tool. What this allows you to do is kind of like use calligraphy pens. For those of you who are artists and are familiar with what that is, you can choose the type of line that you want to create, take your tool, draw that line, and when you're finished, it will automatically taper at both ends, just like the design you see, to create that type of a look. Now, this tool I use when I'm creating shapes or I'm creating designs. I've actually seen people use these tools to create actual drawings of things and highlights and things like that. I don't use it a lot, but I do find it a quote-unquote fun tool to play with. I have used it a couple of times. Now, the next thing that I want to show you, let me get rid of some of this stuff, is the dimensioning tool. And I use this tool a lot to create what the size is, height-wise, width-wise, diagonally. In this case, when you choose the tool, you simply choose if you want to go vertical or horizontal. We'll start with vertical. Click once at the top of your design. Come down, click at the bottom. Then go to the center. When you pull out, go to the center and click, and it'll put the numbering in for you of how high it is. Now, we'll do the same for the vertical. Click, click, drop. Okay, so we know that this is about 2 inches wide by about 1.5. Now, the numbering's too big, so you can click off so nothing is selected, choose the number, and now you can go in and change the point size. Let's move it down to 10 point. Let's move this one down to 10 point. Okay, now I've got a call out dimension that shows 2.01 by 1.47. Now, I wasn't very exact when I clicked on here. This should only be 2 inches. This should be about 1.5 inches. Okay, so what you can do is choose the line that you've created. Right here where it says the number of decimal points to go out, you can change this down to 1, and it'll change it to 2.0. Change this one. Whoops, got to click on the line, not the lettering. Change it to 1 point past the decimal point. It changes it to 1.5. So now I can send this to a customer and show the customer that either as a PDF file or a fax, look, this design is 2 inches from left to right and 1.5 inches from top to bottom. You can also do a diagonal by clicking here. Click on one point, click on the other, draw out, and it tells you what the diagonal point is from here to here. Okay? I use this tool a lot. Sometimes if I'm just trying to figure out how high and how wide something is, I'll simply draw a box around things or two things, something like this. Choose my rectangle tool, and I'll draw a box, and I want to know how high it is, and it tells me it's 1.42. Okay, so that's another way if you just want to find out how tall or how wide something is. But if you want to make a nice call out for your customer, using the dimensional tool will help with that. The next thing we want to show and do, now I'm not going to go through the flyouts of how to create a rectangle or an oval, but I do want to show you how to create a polygon. I'm also quickly going to show you how to do the graph and how to do the spiral. But these two tools, again, aren't two tools that I use on a regular basis. I do use the polygon tool, though. And what I use that for are like starbursts and callouts. And to do that, when you choose the polygon tool, you have a choice of how many sides you want on your star. In this case, we'll take it up to about 14. I'll simply draw about the size that I want it to be. Now, remember I told you tools usually work together? After you've drawn the size, height, and width-wise, you want to go to your shape tool, grab one of the nodes, and pull in, and you'll start to create your starburst. Once you get it the way that you want it, now I usually use the conjunction of words like new, open, things like that. I'll click on the artistic text tool, type in new, and then color it the way I want it. Make this white, make this red, get rid of the outline. I right mouse click on the X at the top, and now I've got a nice starburst that says new. So that's what I use the polygon tool for and how I use it. Now the graph and the spiral tool I really haven't had much use for, but let's kind of go through it. The graph paper tool, simply when you click on that, you can tell it how many rows and how many columns that you want, and then when you draw, it creates that many individual squares based on the grid that you've chosen. When you ungroup this, you can actually see that they are individual squares. I'm going to be honest with you, I really haven't found use for this once or twice, but it's a fun tool to play with. Okay, spiral tool I kind of feel the same way about. How many spirals do you want in your spiral tool? How far apart do you want them? I have used this on occasion to create spiraling text, and we went through that on a different CD. I believe that was CD number 4. To show text going down into a circle. That's really the only time I've ever used it. So I use that in conjunction with fit text to path. The next set of tools I kind of use a lot, and I like them and I have fun with them. Let's say, for example, we're gonna go over the different tools, and all these tools kind of work the same. The only difference is they have different tools available, or different shapes available. So I'm going to go with the star shape. Now you may say to yourself, Ron, you just covered how to do a star. That's true, but this tool has something a little bit different in it. When you click on the star, up here there's a pull-down menu for shapes. And when you click on shapes, there's actually some down in here that look like banners. And if you click on banner, you can actually draw a banner through whatever it is you like. Now, if you remember, back in CD number 4, I showed you, well, maybe it was CD 3. Anyhow, one of the CDs, and I should remember these things, I showed you how to create letters with a bar through it. Well, this is the tool that I use for creating different types of bars that go through either multiple letters or single letters. There's another shape in here, if we go back, that looks like a different type of banner. And I use these shapes to create that go over my letters. Now there's other things you can do. A fun one here is the call out. You could choose different call outs and place them into places and then type in words. Okay, so this is another way. it's not a way you have to do it. It's just quick ways of adding to graphics and things like that. So these tools here, the basic shape tools, they're great to use when you're just adding things. In this case, when I'm doing letters, I use them all the time. Letters, groups of letters. So those are some advanced tools that you're going to want to learn and pick up on, especially if you're doing a lot of the, gamma, delta, theta, and you want to put a banner through it with the name of the school on it and things like that. So that's another place that I can find different shapes that I want to use. Now, the next set of flyouts are the interactive tools. We've covered some of these. Some of the other ones I'm going to actually cover when we talk about Dockers. So we'll cover those then. The other ones, for example, the outline tool, the fill tool, we've covered those in the past. So I'm not going to go through those flyouts. We just don't have the total time that I need today to go through each tool individually. So I'm just going to go through the ones that I feel are the second set of 15 tools that you need to be aware of, yet learn down the road. So I'm going to move on now to the pull-down menus up at the top, and we're going to go through some of the advanced things with those. We're going to start off right off the bat. We're going to talk about File, Edit, View, and Arrange. File, Edit, and View are normally the same in every program. Under File, you've got things like Save, Save As, Open, Print, things like that. All those tools kind of work the same in every program. But let's talk in the File menu about Import, Export, and we're going to talk about Info. A couple other key tools that are in there. Acquire Image, we covered under CD number 2. That has to do with the scanner and scanning directly into Corel. That saves you time from scanning it from your scanner, saving it, bringing it, importing it into Corel. Okay, so use that button whenever you're scanning. And PDF creation, we talked about that in CD number 5, how to create a PDF to email to your customer. If you don't have Corel 13, I'd recommend being cautious with PDF files because you have no way to keep the customer from, lack of a better term, and I don't like to think of people this way, from stealing your designs. Okay? A PDF is a complete document with the entire design in it, and if you can't keep them from editing it and you can't keep them from printing out on a laser printer at 600 dpi good quality scannable copy, you might not want to use the PDF creation when you're sending proofs to customers. However, Corel 13 has the ability to lock documents, password protect documents, keep people from printing anything over 150 dpi. These are just cautions. I'm a trusting person, but I'll tell you right now, I've lost a couple of jobs where people have taken my artwork to other people, gotten a better price, and left me hanging. So just be careful with that. Let's take the time to talk a little bit about import, export, and info. I said info. Okay. We have import and export, and a couple of things you want to be careful of import and export. Number one, let's talk about import. Now, in the import window, you can open up several different types of designs. CorelDRAW is about the most complete program I've found that will allow you to import several different types from all kinds of different media. Some companies limit you to the numbers. CorelDRAW just is a great program. It's got a lot. I've been able to import everything anybody's ever sent me, with the exception of one type of file, which is from Microsoft PageMaker, I think it's called, or something like that. That's the only one I've had a hard time bringing in. I mean, I've been able to bring in even Microsoft Word stuff. If you go down to the bottom, you've got Word formats that you can bring in. You know, Word 6 and 7, Word 2, Word 97 and 2000. So the only one I've had, Publisher, that's what it's called, Microsoft Publisher. Corel will not bring in a Publisher file. So that's the only one I've really had problems with. But let's talk for a minute about these different types of files. The thing you really want to be careful of when you're importing is that you set the file type for the job you're importing. In this case, if we look up at the top, after the period, it's a PDF. So under files of type, I want to make sure that I set the filter for PDF. Okay? Now, the reason for that is, originally when you bring things in, it's set for all files. So it shows you all the files. You can bring in any one of them that you want. The problem comes in when you're bringing in EPS files. There's two different EPS filters. There's the first one that it comes to. Now when it's importing, it imports as the first EPS that it sees. It doesn't even see the second one if you leave it set to all files. And that EPS filter brings everything in as a bitmap. And we want the vector drawings that come in EPS, not the bitmap. So you have to go in and set the files of type to PS, PRN, or EPS. This will bring in all the text information, the vector information, the graphic information, all the colors that you need to work with. And that's why when you're importing things, I really tell people, instead of leaving it set to all files, take a look at where the job is, what it is, look at the file extension at the end. In this case, here's a .cdr. Set the files of type to CDR. That way it makes sure that it brings in based on that specific format. It doesn't try to guess what format you want to use as when you set it to all files. Okay, so that's a really important part in advanced tools that you need to know about. Now, under export, when you go to File and Export, it's kind of the same thing. You need to be specific about things. What do you want to export as? And there's several different types of filters that you want to use. Some of the ones that I use for exporting, I will export as a CMX file. Now, a CMX file is a file that is a graphic file that is generically able to take from, say, Corel to another program like FlexiSign Pro. It's a lot like an EPS file, however, it's more restrictive. It only works with certain programs. EPS is another export for me. I use that a lot when I'm going from one program to another. I export a lot of JPEGs. And in Corel 11, you've got three choices. Just use the first choice of JPEG. Okay? And that you can use that JPEG then as a sample to send to a customer. You can attach it to an email if you don't want to send out a PDF file. Okay? So again, it's very important that Save Type As is set to what you want to export. And out of all these different export features, each export has its own tweaks that you want to use. If you want to know more specifics about the tweaks, again, go to Help. That will help you. If you have to spend more than 15 minutes on it, give me a call. I will try to work with you on a specific file type that you're trying to export as, and maybe I'll have some suggestions that you're not thinking of. Okay, the next thing to talk about is the info. Now, this is it's called document info. What this does is it gives you all the information about your document. For example, at the end when you're done with something, you should convert it to curves. Sometimes people don't know if they've got all their text converted. If you come in here and you can scroll down, you can see I've still got text. I've got 89 different artistic texts still being used in this document. Okay, so I need to go back and find them and convert them to curves. Okay, so you'll see a lot of information that's in here. Talks about your bitmaps, your styles, what effects you're using, what fills you're using, what outlines you're using. One of the other cool things is it tells you where the name and location of the file is. I've got to a point, there's a print area here. when I'm finished, so I know where these things are, sometimes we have trouble saving them where we want to save them, I'll turn off everything except the file information and print this out, so it tells me mainly where the file is, and I'll put it in the file folder. This keeps me from having to write down long strings of names and numbers to tell whoever's working on it next where it is. So that helps me out a lot. Okay, so that kind of covers the file area. Let's go into Edit. And under the Edit tool, there's several different tools, again, that are common with everything. Cut, copy, paste, undo, redo. There's a couple of things in here that I'm going to go over, and the main thing I want to talk about, we've talked about copy properties from, and we've talked about find and replace in CD number 3. However, two other things you're going to want to be aware of are the differences between duplicate and clone. Now, let's talk about this a little bit by using something simple like my name. I have two choices. I can copy and paste this, or I can duplicate it. Let's duplicate it right now. Let's go to Edit and go to Duplicate. And what it does is it makes an exact duplicate of what the original is. Now, let's go ahead and make a clone. So I'm going to choose I'm going to choose my subject, which is my name. Go to Edit and go to Clone. Now, these things look about the same. Here's the original, this is the duplicate, and this is the clone. Now, the reason why you'd want to clone something versus duplicate is if you've got something multiple up and you want to make one change and one change only. Let's say the person doesn't want his name Ronald, he wants the name Ron. If I change the first one and press Enter, it will, and choose my pick tool, it also changes the clone to Ron. So what that allows you to do when you're doing things multiple up, for example, we make business cards for people, and I've got a template where it's 12 up. And I put the person's name in once. If I clone the other 11 pieces and the customer wants to make a change, let's say they've moved and they've got a new address, I don't have to retype it 12 times. I don't have to duplicate it 12 more times and place it. I just have to retype once, and it changes everything else that's been cloned. So the clone tool is really a great tool if you're doing multiple objects. A couple drawbacks to the tool. It changes everything. It changes the font, it changes the text, it changes the size, it changes the color. But sometimes I've run into some issues with clone, and I want to make a slight change to one versus another. Then I have to convert it to a duplicate. But for the most part, if you're doing multiple ups, this is a great tool to learn, understand, and use. Okay, let's go to the View pull-down menu. Wireframe and Enhanced and Normal we've been covering quite a bit. And that's just the way we look at it. We want to make sure that if we're cutting the design, we don't have any overlapping lines. Or if we want to pick specific objects out, if we go to wireframe, we can click right on the edge of what we're doing. So that tool we've covered quite a bit. We talked about Snap to. Snap to guidelines, Snap to grids. Those are a couple of tools that I use when I'm trying to be as exact as possible. Setting up of guidelines and rulers and grids. This is all just setting up these different devices. Again, if you want to know more about these things, CD number 1 we talked about it a little bit. I think we also covered it a little on CD number 5 when we talked about guidelines. So you might want to check that out also. Under layout, we covered this extensively on CD number 1 and CD number 5. This really has to do with the page setup. How your page is viewed, how it's seen, the border, the size, things like that. Check your last CDs. And then under Arrange, we've got several different tools that we use in here on all the CDs. Group, ungroup, combine, break apart. There is an area down here. Hang on for 1 second. Let me choose two objects. Down here where it says lock object and unlock object, I would strongly suggest that you stay away from these pieces. Reason being is once an object is locked and you've forgotten that it's locked, you can't make any adjustments to it. And sometimes people get a little frustrated when they call me because they can't make a change to part of the document and they can't figure out why. It's because people aren't used to locking objects so that they can't be changed. So they forget, oh yeah, I locked an object. So if you're going to use it, but remember that when you lock an object, you have to unlock it in order to do anything to it. It's kind of like protection so nobody changes it. Now, we talked about group, ungroup. We talked about combine and break apart. These work together. That's why they're sectioned off this way. Combine and break apart work together. One of the biggest questions I always have is what's the difference between group, ungroup, combine, and break apart? The best way to try to describe that is to describe a bucket of water and the water is dripping into the bucket. Now, when the drop lands in the bucket, it actually fuses itself as part of the water that's in the bucket, and you can never get back to the individual drop. That's what combine and break apart is. Combining everything together brings all the droplets of water together as one. And in order to get it apart, you break it apart, but you never have the original object again. Group and ungroup, how that works is you have a single drop in a single bucket, and you've got multiple buckets. And you want to take and hold all those buckets together, carry them in your arms, and get across, to the next table. Now, when you grab them with your arms and you carry them to the next table, that's grouping something. When you set them down and let them go, that's ungrouping something. You now have individual buckets with individual drops of water in it, and now they are ungrouped. To combine that ungrouped would be to take all the drops of water and put them into one bucket. And now they're combined. They're no longer individual pieces. They're no longer individual droplets. Okay? Hopefully that describes group and ungroup and combine and break apart for you. Some people have a hard time with it. However, just remember this. Something that's grouped needs to be ungrouped. Something that's ungrouped should be grouped if you want the two pieces to stay together and not move. When you combine something, you are making it all one object and not individual objects. Okay? Okay, we're going to go over the next pull-down menu is text. We're going to skip effects and bitmaps for right now. We're going to go over those at the end because those are going to take a little longer. But let's talk about text. Now, in the text pull-down menu, we have talked about formatting text. We've talked about editing text in other CDs. We've talked about fit text to path. We've talked about converting from artistic text to paragraph text and paragraph text back to artistic text. However, there are a couple of things in here that I want you to, that are new that I want you to get. Number one is the writing tools, and number two is the change case. Now, a lot of people don't know what a change case is all about. However, I've had some points where I've typed some stuff in for customers to look at, and they say, well, I wanted that in upper and lower case. I didn't want it all in caps. So you have two choices. You erase it and type it back in again, or if you go to text, there's a thing in here called change case, and you can choose title case, which is upper and lower case, and click on OK. Now it changes all your text to upper and lower case. Consequently, you can go back the other way too. If I wanted it all in caps, I can go back to text, change case, choose all uppercase, click on OK. And just for fun, those people that want all lowercase letters in front of everything, if you go to text, change case, choose toggle case, now you have Well, that didn't choose that right. Well, toggle just moves from upper to lower. I thought it was supposed to do lower than upper. But you can go through all lowercase sentence case if you want it to be that way, which is upper and lowercase. But you notice that the upper is only on the first letter of the sentence. Okay? So learning more about change case could help you save a couple of steps when it comes to changing text. Or some people who can type, unlike me, can just erase it, retype it really quick, and be done. Now, something that people are unaware of is that CorelDRAW has both a spell checker and a thesaurus. Okay? The spell checker and thesaurus can be accessed by going to Tools and going to Writing Tools, and you can choose spell checker or thesaurus. If you want to try to find another name meaning the same thing, use thesaurus. If you want to check the spelling that you're using, click on spell check. It'll go through and check everything that you have selected and let you know if there's any problems. In this case, there aren't. If you want to check your entire document or pages in your document, you can run the spell check by pressing Control F12 with nothing selected, and it will go through and check all the text in your entire document for you. So this should help a little bit for those of you who kind of want to use one program for everything, because you can now write letters, check the spelling. In my case, even though I'm making a sign for somebody or I'm making a garment for somebody, I still run spell checker because I can't spell. So hopefully those tools will help you as well. Now, the next pull down we're going to go through and cover the basics on is Tools. So if we go to Tools, we have covered Options. If we go to Tools, the first one here is Options. We've covered Options. We've covered Color Management today when we got started. So the next thing I want to cover, we've covered Object Manager, which is another tool that you should become familiar with on CD number 5. The next thing I want to talk about is the Scrapbook. Now, Scrapbook is a very good way to find artwork. It's not the program I was talking about, but it will help when you're looking for artwork. Now, the way this works is you go to Tools, Scrapbook, click on Browse. Already had the Docker open. Okay? When you open up Scrapbook, you can then go anywhere on your hard drive to find your clip art. In this case, I'm in my CD-ROM drive. I've gone to clip art. I've gone to collection, animal, farm, and it gives me a preview of what all these different things look like. Now, normally, to bring something into Corel, you have to go to File, Import, Bring it in. If you use the Scrapbook, you can simply, whatever you see, click on it with your left mouse button, hold, drag onto your page and drop it, and it'll bring that in for you. It's kind of like an automatic import. It will do that with other formats other than CorelDRAW formats, but this is a great way to bring clip art into your design. Now, there's a couple of other things that you can do. You can look for clip art on the web. You can change the way these designs look. You can view them by details. You can view them by a list. You can view them by small icons. I like to use just regular icons, but sometimes even this is too small to see previews. Like, I'm not sure what that is, except it says it's an alpaca. If you go over here, this little arrow right here, and click on it, you can then go to View and go to Thumbnail Size, and what that brings up is this window right here, which allows you to change the size of the thumbnail. Right now it's normal. We can change it to large and make it bigger. We can change it to extra large and make it larger. Once you've decided what size you want, you click on OK. And now you get larger views of your clip art. Oh, there's the bull that I want. Let's bring it in. So the scrapbook is a great tool when it comes to working with your clip art, working with artwork, working with other Corel files that you want to bring into Corel, visually seeing what they look like. It does allow you to look at EPS files. It does allow you to look at bitmap files, so you can even use the viewer for all of that. Now, for those of you who have Corel, you actually have some CDs that came with it that have clip art on it. And in this case, you can at least take a look at the clip art. In this case, I've got my CorelDRAW 10 CD clip art in. And let me change the size of those icons again, just so I can get a few more on the page for you. Okay. On clip art 10, you've got clip art, extra fonts. Let's go into clip art. We can go into the collection or the premium. We'll go into the collection. And now I've got some categories. You know, here's a business category if I want to look for some business clip art. Okay. And I can actually now see what the clip art looks like. Okay. Now that's important for those of you who have Corel 10, Corel 11, Corel 9. Those never came with clip art books, although you do have a clip art book here. Okay, so for those of you with 9, 10, 11, I think 12 as well, I think they went back on 13 and they started including the clip art books again. You've got this great CD with all this clip art, but you don't know what it looks like. This is how you can view what it looks like if you have it. Now, the next time we get together, I'm going to show you a program which will allow you to categorize everything. So if you want to find a horse, you could type in the word horse on this clip art CD, and it'll give you the entire look, everything that has a horse in it on the CD. So we'll go through that next time. But Scrapbook is kind of the intermediate program for you to use for now. Okay, so that goes over Scrapbook. That goes over the pull-down menu of tools. There's really nothing else in tools that right now you should be familiar with. However, I will probably look at some other things later to talk to you about, which will help you again with clip art, and that's next time we get together. We'll probably go over the run script and the visual basics. But we've covered palette editor before, and all these other things. So let's move on. Okay, the next window is the Word window, the pull-down menu. Now, the thing that I like about this window is, first of all, I can tile things vertically, I can tile them horizontally, or I can cascade them. Now, I've got two windows open right now. When I look at the bottom, I've got Graphic 1 and I've got the homework course that we're working on right now. If I go to Cascade, it actually cascades these two in a way so that I can choose between the two of them and work on them. Another way that I like to view this, if I go to Window and I go to Tile Horizontally, it'll give me it tiled top and bottom horizontally. If you have more graphics open, I'm going to open up a couple more new pages. You'll see that it's putting them in a cascade right now. But let's say I want to take a look at all these. Go to Window. In this case, we'll use Tile Vertically. And you'll see now I can get previews of all the different things I'm working on. Here, I'll click on my design. I'll go to the zoom tool, and I'll zoom to page. Now I can get a better kind of look at it. Now if I want to swap this with one of these, which is a larger view, okay, all I have to do is select it. It'll now be my first window, so it'll put the window here. I'll go back to Window, go back to Tile Vertically, and now it's here. If I want to make it even larger so I can work on this window, I click on the middle icon to maximize, and now I get a full view of my window. Yet if I want to use something else from another Corel page, I go to Window, Tile Vertically, and let's copy all this to another page. Select it all. Control C will copy. Let's go to Graphic 5. Control V will paste it. And there I have it on another document. So under Window, being able to work with multiple windows is what you're looking at when you talk about the window area. Okay, I'm going to close all these other graphics. We really don't need them. And maximize my window. And zoom in so that we get a little bit better look at the window. Okay. Now, the other thing under Window are Dockers. Now, we talked about a little bit about interactive Dockers. We've used a few of them. Interactive Dockers such as the Contour tool, the Envelope tool. We showed you them as a toolbar that changes up here on top. However, if you want to use them as a Docker, simply click on Dockers. Let's go to the Envelope tool. It then puts a Docker on the right-hand side, basically with all those choices we had before. Let's go to the interactive here under the interactive tools. You'll see I've got the tools for straight line, single arc, double arc. They're right here. Okay? So if you want another way to work with the envelope or any of the tools, you can set them up as Dockers on the right-hand side. This was originally the way Corel 5, Corel 6, Corel 7, Corel 8 used to utilize these tools until it got into having an interactive tool on the side and placing tools up on the top. Now, some of the things that are not available through here, for example, on the envelope tool, is if you go to presets. Hang on for 1 second. There are different presets that are normally available, and for some reason I can't access them. But the only way to access these presets, which are like heart shapes and pennant shapes and stuff like that, is through the Docker. You cannot access them through the interactive bar. Okay? So again, if you want to read up more on the Docker for each tool instead of using the interactive tools, feel free to go ahead. Okay, now the next thing under Window is called Refresh Window, and I've already used that a couple times today. What happens is sometimes when you do something on a page, Corel leaves a little residual stuff from the last time. Your screen just hasn't redrawn yet on your computer. If you use Control W, that will refresh the window so that it gets rid of all that excess stuff that's there from the residual from whatever you did. So Control W, refreshing the window, is a nice shortcut to help you with your visualization on your screen. Okay, we're going to move on now to the Effects menu. And we've already covered the contour, the envelope. Under Effects, you'll find these different effects that are available. We've covered Power Clip. We're going to cover Extrude, and we're going to cover Lenses. These are two tools. They're advanced tools that you will probably use later once you get the understanding of how your tools work. So to access them, let's start with Extrude. Go to go to Effects, and go to Extrude. Now, what we're going to do, let's zoom out. You'll notice here the screen hasn't redrawn yet. Again, Control W redraws the screen. Okay, we're going to kind of create this M with this extrude on it. And what we want to do is choose the subject, in this case the letter M. Then we have a whole lot of choices over here for extruding. Okay, we first have to click on Edit. I chose the first tool here, which was the Extrude Camera. Click on Edit, and now we have some choices. How do we want this to look? Okay, do we want to go from front to back? Do we want to go from back to front? For now, we're going to choose small to back. Okay, and then where do you want the vanishing point to be? Okay, I normally like to do this manually. The vanishing point is this X right here that you see on your screen. Click and hold with the left mouse button, and basically it's asking where do you want the point to go. And we want it to vanish down in the middle, kind of like you see here. I can then click on Apply. I love it when CorelDRAW gets a mind of its own. And it always seems to be at the end, doesn't it? The other thing you can do is you can manually put things in here, and that's what I'm doing here, the horizontal and the vertical. Okay, brings the X back to where it needs to be. So you can see the interactive, I call them marching ants. Kind of shows you what it's going to look like when you're finished. So we're kind of looking like this. Now, in this case, we want a red drop shadow. So to get the red drop shadow, I have to go over to Extrude Color. Make sure that Solid Fill is turned on and pick which color I want. In this case, it's going to be red. I click on Apply, and now it creates that drop shadow. Now, if you're using this as a drop shadow that you're going to cut, if you're going to have like blue twill on the foreground and red twill on the background, what you want to do when you're finished is go to Arrange and break Extrude Group apart. Move this out of the way, and you'll see you've got two separate objects. However, be very careful. I'm going to zoom in. And we talked about overlapping lines before. If we go to wireframe, we see we've got some overlapping lines that go on here. In order to get rid of those overlapping lines, you're going to have to trim the foreground color out of the background color. And we've gone through that on another CD. Several other CDs, as a matter of fact. Okay. However, this is a nice way to create depth with dimension, and that's using the Extrude tool. Now, another tool that I like to use is called the Lens tool. And the Lens tool is kind of neat because you can take any object and turn it into a lens, kind of like putting a lens on a camera. Okay. In this case, this lens happens to be a Brighten lens. All I did to do it was I selected an object. In this case, I just used a simple square. I then went to Effects and Lenses. And you have several different lenses that you can choose from. You can magnify an object, as you can see there. You can tint an object or turn it into a transparency with a colored tint. Kind of looks like that. Or in this case, what I did was I used the Brighten lens and I gave it a different rating. In this case, let's try 25 and see what that looks like. I type in 25, I press enter, and it's barely brightened. Let me zoom in a little bit more. We'll take a look at this. You can see it brightened up the bottom half from the top half. Maybe you want to go more. So let's take this up to 75. Even though it's brightened it looks kind of faded, like it's very light. Let's take this up to 95. Let's go back down to 90. Okay? And what I can do now is, even though I brightened it, here's another thing you can do with the Brighten lens. what I'm doing is I'm putting the lens over the top of my object. I'm going to get rid of the square around the outside, which is my outline. I'm going to right mouse click. And now what we've got is a watermark. I'm going to send it to the back, arrange, order to back, and then let's put it behind my lettering. So now I've got something like a watermark that can be used. I can put my logo behind there now. So now whenever a customer takes one of my PDF files, I'm going to have my logo behind it. Okay, so that covers extrude and lens. Now it doesn't cover extrude in depth. Extrude is a very complex tool that you'll want to play with. Lenses is kind of a tool that I use occasionally as a tool to learn. When it comes to the type of work we're doing, I use it on some of the color designs that I do for people. When we use the full color twill or the full color film. So those are things that you might want to play with and learn as well. Let me zoom back to a full page and then get rid of. Okay, let's go over bitmaps. And this is kind of the end of the seminar, so couldn't pick a better time to have a problem. When it comes to bitmaps, we have covered several different things about bitmaps, but we haven't gone into great detail with bitmaps. We've talked about how to convert to a bitmap, how to crop a bitmap, how to trace a bitmap. Under bitmaps, you're talking about what's known as a scanned-in object, or like a JPEG object, something with what they're known as pixels. And the tool that I really want you to be aware of when it comes to using your bitmaps is resample. Now, how that works is, normally people are tempted to take the bitmap, if they want to make it larger, grab a corner and make it larger. You'll notice that right now this bitmap is 300 dpi by 300 dpi, which is what we recommend. But when they stretch it larger, the DPI goes down. And this can cause a problem with color, clarity, and the size of your file. What I recommend to people when you're sizing bitmaps, if you know what the size is that you want, or even if you don't, you want to use resample, and I'm going to show you why. We want to stay at 300 dpi. So if we go to bitmap, and we go to resample, we are already set to 300 dpi. The image is about 2 by 2.5. We want to make it, let's say, twice as big. So we can highlight through the 100% and go to 200%. Or we can go through and let's make it a full 5 inches tall. It proportionally changes everything, but it leaves the resolution at 300 dpi. So let me click on OK. When it's finished resampling the design, you'll see that I still have the same bitmap, the same clarity, and it's still at 300 dpi. As opposed to, if I were to stretch it that large, I don't have as much clarity, and I'm losing color, and the pixels, the small details that make up the design, are actually getting larger. That's why the DPI goes to 124 DPI. So, what I'm getting at here is when it comes to bitmaps, you want to make sure that you resample a bitmap, not stretch a bitmap. Okay, and that's important when it comes to working with your bitmaps. And when you work on your bitmaps, normally you're going to print something out or you're going to clean it up to trace it. So that covers the seminar for advanced drawing tools. And next seminar we're going to have is designing with clip art. And this is where I'm going to get into more tools that deal with clip art. We've kind of talked about a few of them here today. And I'd like to invite you to join us if you have the time. Or you can always just get the CD afterwards if you prefer. So, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to open up the phone lines. If you'd like, you can press the number 6 on your keypad. If there's something that I've showed you that you didn't understand and you'd like some clarification on, or if there's a question that you have about something even unrelated to this, please let me know, and I'd be glad to help you out. Okay. Apparently, I must have covered everything. I did have one question during the seminar. I was asked, where did you save it? Elaine, are you there? Okay. Right. I didn't know if that was pertinent or not, so I kind of waited till the end. Go, oh, when I saved it? I've got a